512 home runs. Hall of Fame. World Series champion. One of the greatest power hitters who ever lived. And nobody remembers him. Eddie Mathews played 17 seasons in the major leagues. Hit more home runs than any third baseman in history when he retired. Played alongside Hank Aaron for 13 years. Watched Willie Mays patrol center field. Competed with Mickey Mantle for home run titles. But history forgot him. When people talk about third basemen, they mention Mike Schmidt, Brooks Robinson, George Brett, Wade Boggs. They skip Eddie Mathews. When they talk about the 1950s and 60s, they talk about Mantle, Mays, Aaron. They forget Mathews. This is the story of the most underrated third baseman in baseball history. The left-handed slugger who hit 512 home runs and got lost in the shuffle. The man who played for the Braves in 3 different cities and never got the credit he deserved. Today, we're breaking down why Eddie Mathews might be the greatest third baseman you've never heard of. The stats, the context, the teammates who overshadowed him, and why he belongs in the conversation with the all-time greats. Let's go. Eddie Mathews was born in 1931 in Texarkana, Texas. Signed with the Boston Braves in 1949 at age 17. Made his debut in 1952 with the Braves. Hit 25 home runs as a rookie. Not bad, but 1953 was the breakout. The Braves moved to Milwaukee. Mathews hit 47 home runs, led the National League. At age 21, he was already one of the most feared hitters in baseball. Left-handed power, sweet swing, natural. He wasn't just hitting home runs, he was crushing them. Tape measure shots, upper deck, over the scoreboard. Mathews had power that rivaled anyone in the game. From 1953 to 1960, Mathews hit 313 home runs, about 39 per year, an unprecedented power run for a third baseman. 8 straight seasons of elite production. He made the All-Star team 9 years in a row, from 1953 to 1961. 9 consecutive seasons as one of the best players in baseball. But here's the thing, nobody talks about it. Why? Because he played in the same era as Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays. Mantle was hitting home runs in New York, the biggest market, the biggest stage. Mays was in New York too, then San Francisco. The media loved them. Mathews was in Milwaukee, small market, less attention, fewer headlines. He was doing the same things they were doing, hitting 40 home runs, making all-star teams, winning MVP votes. But the spotlight never found him. Let's talk about 1957, the best season of Mathews' career, and one of the most forgotten great seasons in baseball history. Mathews hit 32 home runs, drove in 94 runs, hit .292, led the Braves to the World Series. They played the Yankees, Mantle's Yankees, the dynasty. The Braves won in 7 games. Eddie Mathews and Hank Aaron carried the offense. Mathews hit a home run in Game 4. Drove in crucial runs. The Braves won their first championship since 1914. Eddie Mathews was the third baseman on a World Series champion. But when people talk about that team, they talk about Warren Spahn, the pitcher. They talk about Hank Aaron, the right fielder who would go on to break Babe Ruth's home run record. They don't talk about Mathews, even though he was just as important. Even though he hit just as many home runs as Aaron that year. Mathews was always the other guy, the sidekick, the forgotten star. Here's what people don't understand. Eddie Mathews hit 512 home runs in his career. 512. When he retired in 1968, he was 7th all-time. Only Ruth, Mays, Aaron, Fox, Mantle, and Ted Williams had more. 7th all-time. He hit more home runs than Willie McCovey, more than Ernie Banks, more than Harmon Killebrew. And he did it as a third baseman. That matters. Third base was not a power position in the 1950s. It was a defensive position. You played good defense, hit for average, maybe hit 15 to 20 home runs. Mathews was hitting 40. From the left side. As a third baseman, it was unprecedented. Mike Schmidt came later. He's considered the greatest third baseman ever. 548 home runs. 3 MVPs. Schmidt is a legend. Rightfully so. But Mathews did it first. Mathews showed that third base could be a power position. He paved the way. But Schmidt played in Philadelphia. Big market. Mathews played in Milwaukee. Small market. That's the difference. Let's compare them. Eddie Mathews, 512 home runs, .271 average, 2,315 hits, 1,453 RBIs, 2-time home run leader, 9-time All-Star, 1957 World Series champion. Mike Schmidt, 548 home runs, .267 average, 2,234 hits, 1,595 RBIs, 8-time home run leader, 12-time All-Star, 3 MVPs, 1980 World Series champion. Schmidt has the edge. More home runs, more MVPs, but it's closer than people think. Mathews was elite, he just didn't get the recognition. Brooks Robinson is considered the greatest defensive third baseman ever. 16 Gold Gloves, 1970 World Series MVP. But Brooks hit 268 home runs. Good player, Great defender, but not the hitter Mathews was. George Brett, .305 career average, 3,154 hits. Hall of Famer, but Brett hit 317 home runs. Again, great player, but not the power of Mathews. Wade Boggs, .328 career average, 3,110 hits, but 118 home runs. Elite contact hitter, but different type of player. When you look at pure power from the third base position, Eddie Mathews is the prototype, the original, the blueprint, but nobody talks about him. Why? 3 reasons. First, the teammates. Eddie Mathews played with Hank Aaron from 1954 to 1966. 13 years. Aaron hit 755 home runs, broke Babe Ruth's all-time record, became a civil rights icon, one of the most important athletes in American history. You can't compete with that. Mathews and Aaron hit back-to-back in the Braves lineup for over a decade. Aaron hit third, Mathews hit fourth, the most feared 3-4 combo in baseball. But Aaron's story was bigger. His legacy was bigger. Mathews got lost. Second reason, the market. Milwaukee was a great baseball city in the 1950s. Fans packed County Stadium. But it wasn't New York. It wasn't Los Angeles. It wasn't Boston. The national media didn't cover the Braves the way they covered the Yankees or Dodgers. Mathews was hitting 40 home runs in relative obscurity. Third reason, timing. Mathews retired in 1968, right when the game was changing, right when offense was about to explode in the 1970s. He didn't play long enough to hit 600 home runs. Didn't play into the era when third baseman hitting 40 home runs became normal. He was ahead of his time, but retired before people realized it. Let's talk about his decline, because it matters. In 1966, the Braves traded Mathews to the Astros after 15 years in a Braves uniform. It was brutal. He was 34. Still productive, but the Braves wanted to get younger. They moved to Atlanta in 1966. Started fresh. Didn't want the old guys around. Mathews played 1 year in Houston, then went to Detroit in 1967. Was a role player, bench guy. The Tigers won the World Series in 1968. Mathews was on the roster, got a second ring, but he barely played. He retired after that season. 512 home runs. Hall of Fame career. But his final years were spent bouncing around. Never got the farewell tour. Never got the celebration. Just faded away. That's part of why he's forgotten. Great players who finish strong get remembered. Players who fade out get forgotten. Here's what makes it worse. Mathews made the Hall of Fame in 1978. First ballot, 79.4% of the vote. That's significant. That means the writers who watched him play knew how good he was. They voted him in immediately. But by 1978, casual fans had moved on. They were watching Pete Rose, Reggie Jackson, the Big Red Machine. Mathews was a relic from a different era. And the Braves weren't good in the 1970s. They were terrible. Nobody was thinking about Braves history. Nobody was celebrating their Milwaukee days. The franchise had moved on. The fans had moved on. Mathews was forgotten. But here's the truth. Eddie Mathews deserves to be in the conversation with Schmidt, Brett, and Robinson. He deserves to be remembered as one of the greatest third basemen who ever lived. 512 home runs from the left side as a third baseman. In an era when third basemen didn't hit home runs. 9 All-Star appearances. World Series champion. Hall of Famer. These aren't empty stats. This is greatness. This is a Hall of Fame career that's been forgotten because of circumstance. Because he played in Milwaukee. Because he played with Hank Aaron. Because he retired at the wrong time. None of that diminishes what he accomplished. Let's put it in perspective. In 1959, Eddie Mathews and Hank Aaron were on the verge of becoming the first teammates in history to both hit 40 home runs in the same season. Mathews finished with 46, Aaron with 39. They came 1 home run short of making history, but they were still the most dangerous duo in baseball. The Braves were an offensive powerhouse, and Mathews was just as responsible as Aaron. But history only remembers Aaron. The home run race with Ruth, the racism he faced chasing the record, the dignity with which he handled it all. Aaron's story is monumental. It overshadows everything else about those Braves teams, including Eddie Mathews. Here's another stat that'll blow your mind. From 1953 to 1960, Eddie Mathews hit 313 home runs, more than anyone else in baseball in that span. More than Mantle, more than Mays, more than Aaron, more than anyone. He was the most prolific home run hitter in baseball for nearly a decade, and nobody remembers. That's criminal. That's why he's the most underrated player in baseball history. Not just third baseman. Player, you could make the argument that Mathews is the most underrated player of the 20th century. 512 home runs. Forgotten. 9 All-Star teams. Forgotten. World Series champion. Forgotten. Let's talk about his swing. Beautiful. Left-handed. Compact. Quick. He generated massive power without a big leg kick. Just pure bat speed. Natural strength. Mathews could hit home runs to all fields. Pull side. Opposite field. Center. He wasn't just a dead pull hitter. He was a complete hitter with elite power. Pitchers feared him. They pitched around him. Walked him intentionally. But he still hit 40 home runs a year. That's dominance. That's greatness. The swing is in the Hall of Fame. Literally. There's a bronze plaque with Mathews' swing. It's iconic, but casual fans don't know it. So why does this matter? Why should we care about Eddie Mathews in 2024? Because baseball history is incomplete without him. When we talk about the greatest third baseman, we can't skip Mathews. When we talk about the greatest hitters of the 1950s, we can't skip Mathews. When we talk about the Braves dynasty in Milwaukee, we can't skip Mathews. He was there. He was great. He deserves recognition. Mike Schmidt is the greatest third baseman ever. That's fair. But Eddie Mathews is second. Not Wade Boggs, not George Brett, not Chipper Jones. Eddie Mathews, 512 home runs, left-handed, power, consistency, longevity. He did it all. And he did it in an era where third baseman didn't do that. He changed the position, paved the way for Schmidt, for Brett, for every power-hitting third baseman who came after. But he did it quietly, in Milwaukee, in the shadow of Aaron and Mantle and Mays, and history forgot him. Here's the final thing you need to know. Eddie Mathews is the only player in baseball history to play for the Braves in all three cities: Boston, Milwaukee, Atlanta. He started with the Boston Braves in 1952, moved to Milwaukee in 1953, stayed until 1965, then played for the Atlanta Braves in 1966. 3 cities, 1 franchise. He was there for all of it. The Boston years when the team was struggling. The Milwaukee glory years with Aaron and Spahn. The move to Atlanta. He was the constant, the bridge between eras. That's historic. That's significant. But nobody talks about it because it doesn't fit a neat narrative. It's a fun fact, a trivia question, not a legacy. Eddie Mathews died in 2001 at age 69 after a long illness. By then, he'd been out of baseball for over 30 years. He worked as a coach, a scout, stayed around the game, but he was never a big public figure, never wrote a memoir, never did the talk show circuit. He just lived his life, quiet, humble, the same way he played. He didn't chase attention, didn't demand recognition. He just hit home runs and played third base and won a World Series and went home. Maybe that's why he's forgotten. In an era of self-promotion and personal brands, Eddie Mathews doesn't fit. He was a ball player, nothing more, nothing less, and maybe that's perfect. Maybe that's exactly how he wanted it. But for those of us who care about baseball history, Eddie Mathews deserves better. He deserves to be remembered. He deserves to be celebrated. 51 home runs, 9 All-Star teams, World Series champion, Hall of Famer, first ballot. These are the numbers of greatness. This is a career that belongs in the conversation with the all-time greats. Not as a footnote, not as a trivia answer, as a legend. Eddie Mathews, the most underrated third baseman in baseball history. The left-handed slugger who hit 512 home runs and got lost in the shuffle. The man who played in the shadow of giants and still put up Hall of Fame numbers. He deserves recognition. He deserves respect. He deserves to be remembered. So the next time someone asks you who the greatest third baseman in baseball history is, don't just say Mike Schmidt. Say Mike Schmidt, and then say Eddie Mathews, because Mathews belongs in that conversation. He earned it 512 home runs at a time, in Milwaukee, in the shadow of Hank Aaron, in an era where third basemen weren't supposed to hit like that. He changed the game. He set the standard. He just did it so quietly that nobody noticed. Until now. If you want more forgotten baseball legends like this, subscribe. More coming soon.